Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. A lot of people have commented on a couple of videos I made saying that they believe Ryan Garcia is a welterweight. And especially when I mentioned Conor Benn, talking about fighting Ryan, I said, why don't you chase welterweights instead of light welterweights? You know, you were after Devin Haney, now you're after Ryan. And people were saying, well, you know, Ryan is a welterweight. He can't make 140. And in my opinion, Ryan Garcia is not a welterweight. Why is he not a welterweight? Because he hasn't proved himself at that weight. He spent an awful lot of time at 135. If you go back admittedly, we're going back to when he was in his late teens. You know, he was really probably a super featherweight. So, okay, he's 25 now. And yes, you put on weight naturally as you get older. But when you're that age, it's not difficult to take it off. Trust me, when you get older, it's difficult to take weight off. Now, let's look at Ryan's recent opponents. He obviously fought Haney. Haney made the 140 weight. Okay, he made that weight, and it was his title. Ryan came in at 143 and 2 ounces. The welterweight limit is 147. Prior to that, Ryan fought, I can't remember whether it was a 140-pound fight or whether there was some sort of catch weight. I know Oscar Duarte came in at 142 or 143. And prior to that, Ryan fought Gervonta Davis at 135. Yes, that was probably too light, but I think it was a rehydration clause that did Ryan in rather than making a 135 limit. I could be wrong. Javier Fortuna, that was, I think, a 140 fight. Manuel Tego, I think, was 140, if I remember rightly. So if you go back to 2022, which is when the Emmanuel Tego fight was going on, and of course, by the way, let's go back. I mean, you could go back to Luke Campbell, which was the fight before that. That was a lightweight fight as well, and that I think was in 2021. So, okay, he's outgrown the lightweight division, but why are people presuming that he's a welterweight just because he came in 143 and 2 ounces for the Haney fight? I mean, I don't think he attempted to make weight. I think he kind of, weight bullied the guy who a lot of people consider to be a weight bully. But this idea that, suddenly he's a 147-pounder, I don't get it. And if you want to compare him to Conor Benn, just as an example, I mean, Conor Benn, he turned pro when he was 19. Ryan, I think, turned pro when he was about 17 or 18. Conor he was still a teenager as well. He turned pro in 2016. He was a 140-pounder. Even then, he quickly moved up to 147. I always thought, to start with, when he was at 147, and this would have been, he was fighting Cedric Payno in 2017, and that was at welterweight. I always thought probably Conor was a little bit small for the 147 poundage. But he's definitely grown into it. And he grew into it. I mean, by the time he was fighting, he fought Payno for the second time. Again, that was in 2018. That was a 147-pound fight. Steve Jamoya, he fought him. That was at welterweight. Sebastian Formella, that was at welterweight. Samuel Vargas, that is, welterweight. I mean, this is going back to 2020, 2021. So he's definitely a much bigger man, or maybe not much bigger, but I would say he's bigger anyway, in terms of his frame than Ryan Garcia. Bearing in mind, Conor is 5'8". I think Ryan is about the same height. And I know Ryan did look big against Haney, but bear in mind, Haney until very recently was a 135-pounder. And yes, again, he was struggling to make the weight. No doubt about it at all. But just because you're struggling to make one weight division doesn't mean you suddenly jump up 2. He's a 147-pounder, Conor Benn. I think he's settled into that. Chris Algieri fought there, and I know, names that were past it, But Ryan has never had a scheduled welterweight fight. The Haney fight was for a 140-pound belt. He's never had a 12-rounder. Oh, I don't know, maybe the Oscar Duarte. Was that 10 or 12 rounds? I can't remember. Was that for one of those silly trinkets? But But at the risk of sounding repetitive, I just don't see why people are saying Garcia is a welterweight. I'm sure he could get down to 140 if he was disciplined enough, And bear in mind that when he does fight Ryan Garcia, there are lots of lulls in his work. He'll go perhaps 30 seconds even of a round without really doing anything. And he looked great against Haney, but he wasn't. Haney was winning rounds simply because Ryan very often wasn't doing anything. When Ryan unloaded and he landed, we all saw what happened, But there is an argument to be made in the Haney fight, and it does hold water. If you watch the fight objectively, you could say, okay, I think Haney won 7 of the rounds. That's not a stretch. Look at the fight. The rounds that Haney won, he kind of pinched, almost pickpocketed. Whereas Ryan, when he won rounds, as you saw, he was splashing him all over the canvas. Every time he connected, he was wobbling him. There were another couple of, collapses from Haney that you possibly could have called knockdowns. Garcia had the heavier hands, and he had the physical strength and so on. If anyone is closer to welterweight, I would say it's probably Devin Haney. Because I think if Garcia got a nutritionist and behaved in a disciplined manner with the type of discipline that Haney has shown, I think he can get down to 140. And that's where I want him to stay, to be honest with you. I made a video saying, what's next for Ryan Garcia? Let's have, Garcia versus Teofimo Lopez, Isaac Cruz against Subriel Mateus, and then the winners of those semifinals can meet. I think that would be brilliant. If I had the excellent Turkey's money, I'll be splashing out on those 4 guys, no question about it. Put it in America, put it in Saudi, put it in Britain. I don't give a damn. You put it in someone's backyard. I couldn't give a toss. Do you know what I mean? I just want to see those fights. What I don't want is for Ryan to go up to 147 just for the sake of it, to be outgunned, outweighed. Fight one big 147 pounders who've got their man strength. I mean, does anyone think he'd beat Jaron Ennis? I know he's called him out apparently. No way. Jaron Ennis would chew Garcia up. Okay, I said Devin Haney was going to stop him, so I was wrong there. And don't get me wrong, I'm never going to write off Ryan Garcia again. But why fight at 147 just because you can't be asked to take off a few pounds? And it's not, as long as there's not a rehydration clause in place. I mean, I think, clearly Gervonta Davis, again, I don't think it was so much the 135 poundage. That was bad enough, but to stick the rehydration clause in, that was really putting the boot in. I think Ryan got played there. But making 140, I think he can make 140 if it's done right. If he lives the life. Is he going to live the life? Probably not. But if you don't live the life, if you jump up weights like Broner used to do, you get found out once you start fighting the really good guys, the people who are naturally at that weight. Remember when Broner fought Malignaggi? It was a nip and tuck fight, and you could make a case that Malignaggi won that fight. Malignaggi never really had much power. He always had hand trouble and didn't punch that hard. And Broner kind of eked out a victory at welterweight, took Malignaggi's WBA belt, I think it was. But Malignaggi spent a lot of his career at 140. So he was a small 147 pounder anyway. And he got found out badly when he fought, Porter and who else was it? Was it Danny Garcia he fought? And of course, Broner got found out by Marcus Madana, a guy who, had fought at 140 but had settled into that 147 poundage. For Garcia to jump up and take on the elite 147 pounders, I don't think that would be a very wise thing to do at all. I really don't. I see him as being a light welterweight or a super lightweight, if you prefer. I don't think he should. I think he should stay at 140. Don't go to 147, Ryan. Maximise your talent. Maximise your talent. God knows he's made enough money without even holding a world title belt. Be sensible. Just be sensible for once. Go on. I know you like to pretend that you're, or not pretend, but you like to play the crazy like a fox guy. That's fair enough. You made a believer out of me against Haney. No question about it. But, yeah. Anyway, what do you think? Do you think I'm just whistling Dixie, or do you think I'm telling the truth here? Do you agree with me or not? Let your comments flow out of you. Stick them down below. I'll have a read of them. And, of course, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and also hit the like button and spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. Thank you for your time, as always. I'll catch you later. and bye for now.